What you just saw was the Guardian turret, which is an entirely new ability we would like to replace Rose's Time Snare. Rose is quite bad at the moment in terms of firepower, and her performance as a supportive class isn't nearly effective enough to justify her shortcomings. Although Rose claims to be a support, nothing about her playstyle really reflects supportive play. Rose is essentially a poorly designed DPS class arbitrarily assigned the role of support due to her ability to stun things and build a teleporter. Nothing about Rose actually makes her better at supporting than, say, Citron or Pea-Shooter. Time Snare is an ability which was originally supposed to be a bubble in which time was slowed down, hence the name. Zombies would move more slowly and jump and fall as though in low gravity. This version was short-lived, however, and we instead got the Time Snare we all know, which just slows the zombie and disables abilities in jumping. This ability was extremely annoying for players to face, as it was a long-lasting, slowing stun on a character that could shoot you from across the map. Due to this, PopCap have since then nerfed it not once but 2 times in duration, making it now a 1.5 second version of Chomper's Goo. Not quite as exciting as the ability we saw before the game's release, that's for sure. Everything she does as a DPS class is done more effectively by the other plants thanks to their superior firepower. That's why we had the idea to instead replace the rather useless Time Snare with a new ability to completely reinvent Rose's playstyle. A summonal turret that transforms Rose from a stale stall class with mediocre DPS into a more strategic turret-based class that focuses on area denial and skilled turret placement to maximize her damage and effectiveness. The turrets will be a means to compensate for Rose's otherwise underwhelming firepower and will add a much-needed skilled aspect to Rose. A turret-based class is currently something entirely unrepresented in the Garden Warfare series, and while Sunflower has a similar ability called Darkflower, that ability is more of a gimmick and not the main focus of Sunflower's class, hence why it only has one charge. Rose would now have an added layer of skill to her class she was sorely lacking before. Skillfully managing your turret cooldowns and turret placement becomes the focus of Rose's class, rather than just spamming jump and holding down the trigger. It's important to point out that these turrets would be added alongside a change to the functionality of her weapon, exchanging much of her homing for better projectile speed and accuracy, so she would actually have to aim to get her full DPS at all ranges, while keeping her overall DPS low. In this way, the turrets would become integral to how she plays, since being caught without them gives her much less of a chance due to her damage without the turrets being as low as it always has been, without the never miss homing to make up for it. Rose would now require strategic thought and would reward you for playing smart much better than she does in her current state. With the fine details out of the way, let's get into how the ability would actually work. Visual appearance may be changed when PopCap hopefully implements it, but as for now, it's a red version of Rose's existing teleporter turret. The ability would have 2 charges, with the turrets vanishing after 30 seconds, while the cooldown of the turrets would be 35 seconds each. They would both recharge at the same time, in the same way as abilities like Dark Beam Bomb and Warp. Rose would be best used at mid to close range combat, and would be able to quickly take care of any enemies that come within the range of both her and her turrets. The range of the turrets would be very limited, so she would have to be wary of snipers. The turrets would have 80 health, and would shoot non-stop with better accuracy but lower damage than the normal turrets, to ensure they are reliable and not luck-based. The turret on its own would be less than half as powerful as the Rose herself, so you would have to pretend to be blind and completely ignore the turrets for them to take you on by themselves. In addition to sniping, there would be many other reliable answers to Rose. First and foremost, Stink Cloud would be an excellent tool against her, since it stops the turrets from shooting at all thanks to blinding them, and Super Stink Cloud deals enough damage to vanquish them without any other type of damage dealt. This would make the Foot Soldier Rose's counter in the same way Engineer is Chomper's counter, which regulates the effectiveness of turret spam, so not to worry. While things might sound tough for Imp, his strong firepower lets him take out the turrets pretty quickly if Rose is not on her guard, and she'll no longer have a way to stun Z-Mechs, making up for the harder time Imp would have outside of his mech, and better justifying her primary ignoring the armor of the mech. Super Brains would have a bit more of a problem, but the 80 health of the turrets would allow them to be taken out in one burst of punches, while the other turret can be taken out at long range with the Ultra Ball. And while using several Roses may sound like a sure win for the plant team, since one would think that up to 24 turrets would be a nightmare for the zombies, it's important to remember that the turret would be the main source of Rose's firepower, so killing a motionless 80 health turret is like killing a third of that Rose. Not to mention the fact that any character with crowd damage, like Electric or Splash, or even just a few well-placed Stink Clouds, allow the zombie team a super easy win against a team of only Roses, whereas lots of different plants would not be that easy. And if playing Soldier is not for you, no matter how many turrets get placed, their range will always be limited. So essentially every zombie class stands a fair chance so long as they make sure her turrets are taken care of before they engage. And don't worry Rose fans, because while that may make Rose sound like a sitting duck, she's far from it.
The trick to an effective Rose will be finding the spots where the zombies have much less chance to hit your turrets. And don't forget, you can support your turrets with your own weapon, letting you vanquish zombies who get close in no time flat. And Go Defy is obviously an option for any zombies who seem to be looking for trouble. Arcane abilities become much more powerful with this change, as her turrets will keep shooting at the zombie, letting her swiftly punish any zombie too focused on her. This will be accompanied by a nerf to Arcane Enigma. Sitting still will no longer give you extra duration, since otherwise she would be able to capitalize on that feature way too much. As a trade-off, the cost of each burst to duration would be reduced, so she can still pump out 80 damage per Enigma.
Of course, there would seem to be other arguments against putting this ability in the game, so I'll try to cover most of them here. First of all, it might seem like implementing the ability would take a lot of work from PopCap's side, but this is really not the case. Despite the limitations on modding, we were able to implement a reasonably functional version by modifying existing abilities, so actually creating the ability would be a breeze for PopCap. Other than that, they only need to add an ability icon, and Crook is more than happy to allow them to use the one he made if needed. The Time Snare quest could just be removed from the quest pool entirely, and if that's not impossible, then make Time Snare an always unlocked alternate ability that can be used over Go Defy, akin to Heal Station and Heal Beam on Scientist. Time Snare is a lot less annoying when it's her only option as a stun. Whilst Rose putting down turrets near the teleporter for a total of 5 turrets may seem insane, they would just as easily be taken care of as before, as either way, they are stationary and very predictable. As long as a class is careful, a predictable strategy like this would be easily taken care of by any zombie class. And while it may seem like there would be too many AI in the game if there was nothing but Roses, it's important to note that Sunflower can already do an even more extreme version of this by placing one of her turrets and then respawning and placing an alternate version, for up to 3 turrets per Sunflower. Neither of these are likely to happen, and neither will fill up the AI cap or cause significant lag, as shown by the insane number of AI the game is able to handle on PC when hackers have spammed Mystic Flowers. While it might seem like players might be confused or upset at Rose changing so drastically, it does not seem likely that this would actually be the case. Unlike the Citron or Super Brains changes, this would not be a straight nerf, and would instead come across as exciting new content. This would be an excellent way to make Rose a balanced class, while also introducing a unique and fun ability to the game. No one is going to be sad to see a generic ability like Time Snare replaced with a brand new one. It's not even that much of a stretch to have a class that revolves around one of its abilities, as Goat and Sunflower already revolve around their beams. While Rose would definitely not be a perfect class if this were implemented, she would be a lot better and a whole lot more fun to play and face off against. It's high time Rose gets reworked into a class that's just as fun and unique as the others. And we think we have a good shot at actually making this a reality. If you like this ability idea, tweet at Justin Weeb, Sean Laker, and the Plants vs Zombies Twitter account that you'd like to see this added to the game. The more support our idea has, the more PopCap will know this is something people actually want. It's also a great idea to share this video with your Garden Warfare playing friends, so they too can support it. Every bit of support helps.